Hello chess friends, and welcome to Azarov's chess channel, and welcome to my advanced chess theory and to another part of the King's Indian defense. Today we'll do the exchange variation, and the exchange variation is a variation that is sometimes really hard to handle because it's sort of a linear line, and basically the first couple of moves are forced by white, and if you don't react correctly as black, well, you have many problems. But the thing is that the exchange variation, when you could play a couple of moves, it comes to sort of a positional chess game. And here I wanted to show you how you should handle such positions and where your advantages are while playing as black. I myself like a little bit more. I like this positional approach of the chess because it happens more often, and I think you will be a better player if you understand positional chess instead of playing always for this tactical shots or something, because it happens more often for you to play on a weak square, on a weak pawn, and this is where the very good knowing of positional chess comes very good. So let's see the exchange variation we have here after this King's Indian setup that I've already showed you in my previous videos. Of course, we have after e5 now the exchange and of d takes e5, so it's a little bit different now, and you won't find probably many games there with such tactical shots or similar, but you will find a positional approach by black, and I'll show you a line that it can be very easily memorized, and a line that shows you the weaknesses of white's position. So after changing, now if white trades the queens, and if white takes here now the pawn, you have this, and this will be a continuation that it's better, a little bit slightly better for black, because you have f5 possibilities, knight on c6, again healthy moves and development, and rook is on an open line, so that's very fine. But the continuation that white will probably play is the move bishop to g5, and here I wanted to see something in this position. It's an important thing to see that multiple things are here to see. The first thing that I want to memorize is here that white has pushed his e and c pawn. So the thing is, he left this d4 unprotected. And of course, when you start to play chess, everyone knows about these weak squares and something. But in our main strategical plan, I wanted to show you another thing, is that these pawns, and it's very important, are on like squares. So you see, because of this pawn on e5, you have this dark square bishop, and it's blocking. This pawn is really blocking you from playing with this dark square bishop. So you have this sort of a dark square problem with your bishop, and white has his problem with his light square bishop. So we are here. First of all, I've told you. So here is this weak square. This can be a weak square, but of course these two pawns can also be a target and can be weak pawns. So let's, for instance, imagine that we could get rid of these bishops of this board. So of course black would be on the advance, because then white would have his light square bishop in game, and it would be a bad one, because it would be blocked by its own pawn. So here I recommend you to play knight from b to d7, because knight on d5 is the main threat. So you see, you haven't played with your c pawn, and c6 possibilities are here, so no problem for you, to kick out the knight. So the game that I wanted to show you today, it was played in 2010 between Alexander Bagration and Anton Korobov, and Korobov with the black pieces, and I'll show you how he simply plays on this very weak d4 square. And you see, one square in chess can be so important that if you don't protect it well, you can lose the game only because one unprotected square. So in two games that I wanted to show today, this d4 will be the main theme today, and here are lines how to exploit the weakness of white. So now after knight from to d5 with a simple pin, c6, and here white plays knight on e7, attacking the king and the bishop, but it's not a problem. The king goes to f8, and after a trade of bishops, simply rook to c8. And now we see how let's calculate how can we go on this square. First of all, of course, this after queenside castle, h6 came, and bishop to f6, and bishop to f6. Now we see how to exploit this weakness of d4. First of all, we have to play knight on c5. We have to maneuver the knight, and then to e6, and then on d4. So this is our main idea, to get the knight there. And if the knight maybe takes, then we would have a passed pawn, and it would be very well supported by the bishop. But the other thing is, if we could get rid of this knight and trade it for a bishop, that would be the best thing that you can do in this line. So imagine that this knight would go off the board, and you're sort of a weak bishop, and then you to this squares come with the knight on d4. This would be very fine, because none piece could attack the knight here on d4, so the bishop cannot attack it, and of course you won't trade your rooks for this knight on d4. So here we have knight on d2, and now we have this transposition of the knight on c5. f3 was played, and here Korobov finds this pin. It's sort of a it's not a pin, but it's sort of a positional pin, and I wanted to understand it, because now you see he pinned him, and in couple moves or the next move he can always take this knight. And after he plays his knight on e6 and on d4, no piece can arrest the knight on d4. So now after king to c2, now of course black took, and this is the art of positional play. Now comes after a trade of rooks, now this knight on e6, and after knight king to c2, we have of course first rook to d8, simply taking this very good d file. But of course black isn't worried even about this move rook to d1, because he will then again take the rook and then go on d4, because then it would be a battle between a knight and a bishop. But you see, with this pawns on like squares, this bishop would be weak and blocked out by its own pawns, and of course the knight cannot be kicked away from d4. So we have again bishop to d1, and probably white wanted to transpose the bishop on a more active diagonal, but you see we have here sort of a good protection here, so no coming into the game by the bishop is possible. So we play now in our sort of an endgame style, because now it's now it's even an endgame. And here we go, of course, with our king in the center, maybe even go through dark squares on the attack, so that you see white has again problems around dark squares, and here is where he tries to come into the game. And now if you see the white's position, he has these two really weak squares, this sort of center squares, and they can be possessed by this knight. And that's after king to c3, that's what black does here, plays first knight on f4. He sort of it's a provocational move. He wants white to play g3, but of course he can go back and again go on d4. Now rook to f1 was played, and here you see how black creates a blocking system on dark squares. So he is not allowing white to play f5, because then the bishop would come into the game, and that's not what we want. We want the bishop to be blocked out. And after b4, now we have again, you see this blocking system on dark squares. So of course, if white takes, then you can take with the knight, supported with b6, and come with the rook into the game. That's the main idea. So now white supports the dark squares, but you see black is simply playing through dark squares. Now we have bishop to d1. You see the bishop doesn't know where to go in this game, and it's really blocked out by its own pawns and by this very good knight on d4. And we have again, you see again, a blocking system on f6. And the other thing is that you see now black has put his all of his pawns on dark squares, so they cannot be a target of white's bishop. So the light square bishop would just simply go around them and cannot take them. So in our positional style, how to play against the bishop. So the one thing that best you can do is do this, as black did in this game, to get your pawns on different colors, so on the different color squares. So get your pawns on dark squares. So the other thing is that you can create a blocking system by putting your own pawns on the light squares, but you have to be in sort of you have to sort of really blocking out the bishop, and it's more hard to remain the blockade by putting your pawns on that same squares that the bishop is aiming on. And the third thing is that you can do against the bishop is this thing, that you force sort of your opponent to put his pawns on this on the same squares that bishop is aiming on here on the light squares. So it's more hard to approach, but you see black did that in this game. So after again bishop to a4, you see multiple moves by the bishop. Now came h5, and after h3, you see white he was really blocked out in this game. He didn't know what to do, and then came knight on e2, and he was losing this pawn, and that's where he resigned the game. So you see how this knight can really well jump around here, and can attack white's pawns, while this light square bishop wasn't playing at all. So the other game that I wanted to show you, it was played between Nicolas Brunner and Murtas Kashgalev with the black pieces. Again, we have this exchange variation now after e5, and after bishop to g5, again this move knight on d7. Very well. Again, we have knight on d5, c6. Again, the same continuation, with the difference that black took here with this rook on with this d rook on c8. So now came knight on d2, and you see now it's a little bit different. How again we have this knight on c5, but again we want to go for this d4 square. So this is the weak square, so we're gonna go for it. So the idea while black was taking this with its d pawn is to get rid of this pin. So after h6, that he can maneuver with this knight, and with h6 kick away the bishop. So now came this knight on c5 as told, and we have again knight on e6, again going really for this very weak d4. So now now white wants to defend it, but you see now black finds a really good transposition of the bishop. Here comes first the knight on d7 after castling queenside. Now we have king to e8, and of course with the queens down off the board, you don't have to worry about the king anymore. So the king can go here in the center. It's not a problem. No mating threats are here, so it's not a problem in this game. So after g3, you see now the preparation maybe to go to break through somehow with the bishop pair, but now Kashgalev finds this very good move, bishop to f8, and you see the bishop is the only protector of this d4, and he wants it or he wants to trade it, of course, on this very good square of c5. So we have now knight on knight on b3. You see again preventing such things, but you see how indirect this attack by black on this d4 can be. So he plays a5 with the simple idea to play a4, getting the knight back, and then do our positional idea of playing bishop to c5. So this is the main idea. You see the bishop is the only protector, and with this a5 it's sort of a positional threat, and many players while playing chess don't understand positional threats. They understand tactical threats, but they don't understand positional threats, and you see it's more often that positional games are played, because you always have to fight for your win, not just finding some, I don't know, mate in three situations that they happen very rarely. So now we have this f4, and you see now a4 was played, knight on d2, and after taking, now we have this move of bishop on c5. Now it's forced to trade now, of course, and after a trade, now you see this very good control on dark squares of this knights. So here again we control this very weak d4. So after rook to f1, rook to d8 on a better line, on a better file, of course, and now we cemented our knight on d4. That was our main idea. Of course, here there are no threats. Of course, if white takes, you take and go even with the king on a more active square, because you have this pawn in front of you, so you don't have to worry about some checks. So now you see again black plays on dark squares, again forcing white to do something. Of course, b4 isn't so good because of knight on a4 and maybe knight on c3. So he plays b3, and you see h5 was played. So again, as told, you can play against this bishop by pushing and kicking the way by your own pawns, but you have to be careful to not allow the bishop go and attack your pawns. So I've told you these three things: getting the pawns out of the squares that the bishop is aiming on, or kick it away with your own pawns, or create weaknesses, because you see again 5 of 6 pawns the white has on his like squares, and he has a like square bishop. So in an endgame, this a2 can be a problem, because if you want to protect it, you have to put your bishop on b1. So in an endgame, if you could get your knight on b4, maybe the bishop would always hang only to the defense of this a2 pawn. So you see how weak this bishop is, although it has some diagonals, but it's really a weak one, and I wanted to understand it in this sort of positional chess setups. So now he plays, of course, bishop to h3, because he wants at least stay on this diagonal, at least to aim on something, but it's really aiming onto nothing, because because no pawns are on this diagonal. After a trade, again as told, king to e7 will come and improve the position of the king, and you can even challenge the rook on this f file. So now black plays a very good this check on the king, and here we have, you see how this knights come very good in this sort of positions where it's semi-close position and the knights can really jump around, the bishop cannot, and that's really a problem for white. Now after taking, we have here this fork on the king and the rook, of course, and after taking, here comes this king to e7, and it's really dominant move, and after e5 we have rook to a5, and here is where white resigned. So again, you see, I'm not telling you about this evaluation now, but you see you have again possibilities to play a knight on b4, attacking this a2. You see how white gets is blocked out here. The bishop cannot come into the game. Okay, you can play a simple check, but it doesn't bring you anything. So in this game, it was really important for me to notice this idea of black after knight on b3, how this move of a5 indirectly attacks this very weak d4 square for white. So it's sort of a positional threat, and I'm telling you, many players don't handle the positional approach of the chess game, but it happens often, and I hope you understand what I'm trying to tell you here, because these two games showed really the potential of this sort of exchange variation, and how white gets punished for leaving this d4 square unprotected. So thank you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.